There are four types of software development approaches. The first, and this is the one we spend most time looking at and understanding, is the structured approach. The second approach is prototyping. Third is rapid application development, RAD. And the fourth is end user. So at the start of the creation of software, the project manager or the developer themselves will identify which approach or, and this is very, very important, combinations of approaches are appropriate for developing the software. Now, it's very, very important, especially in an exam when you're given a scenario and you're asked to select an appropriate approach. Each approach has certain advantages and disadvantages. And these factors will obviously, when presented in a scenario, will lean towards a certain approach or combination of approaches that will be appropriate. And it's very, very important that we understand each of these factors. So if we look at the structured approach, which is definitely the most common approach for creating custom software solutions, its main purpose is to create a quality software application that is very reliable. So that means that there are no errors at all within that application. It's also suited to help the user in implementation. And in order to achieve all of this, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money to achieve a solution to such a complex problem. So the structured approach would identify some of those characteristics. On the other hand, the prototyping approach, there are two main reasons why which you would create a prototype. The first is generally a problem with the user. So that would be the user doesn't know exactly what they want to create. Rather than going down the path of actually implementing a solution, you'd create a prototype in order to gather a bit more information from the user concerning exactly what they want. This normally happens within graphical user interfaces. Often users can be not really understand exactly what they want. When a prototype's created, they're able to give a bit more constructive discussion regarding that. The other one is a problem with the solution. So you may know exactly what you want to create, you may have a solution, but something like this has never been created before. So you don't know whether it's feasible, or two, you want to create a prototype to have a better understanding. So that's what's called an evolutionary prototype, where you'll create a solution, you'll refine it, you'll create another solution. Each time it's a prototype, so cost itself isn't too much of a problem. Prototyping also can be very time consuming, especially evolutionary, and that's a factor within that approach. If we have RAD, okay, RAD is something where existing modules are used and put together in order to create a solution. Often reliability is probably not as not of a priority as it is in structured, and sometimes there needs to be joining up of modules, which then also can create errors. But it's very, very quick, and therefore as well doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money. Finally, the last one is end user, and this is something that has become a lot more prominent currently, especially with applications themselves becoming a lot easier in which to program, and the general increase in the capabilities of the average computer user has made this one out of the approaches very more popular. In terms of combinations, prototyping then into structured is one of the first types of combinations. You can also have a structured and a RAD is another combination in which that for the joining you use the structured approach, and obviously you can also have a prototype then an end user then therefore creating that. Now I just want to draw your attention to the syllabus, and there are 4 approaches and the combinations of any of the above. But looking to learn too, this is a question that will always come up within an exam, and compare and determine the most appropriate software development approach for a given scenario. So you have 1 of 5 possibilities for your answer. Now I've got an example of a question here. So it's Westmead Hospital is part of the Sydney West Health and are currently in the process of creating a new patient booking system that will be implemented across all hospitals in New South Wales. The system will record all patient details like contact details, medication, allergies. Also, all consultations will be stored in a secure file so that doctors can review a patient's previous medical history. In Christchurch, New Zealand, a similar program has been implemented with resounding success. So I'm asked to look at comparing and determining what is the most appropriate software development approach for this above scenario. And probably my first process is to look at, okay, what factors are going to either steer me towards a certain software development approach or away from. So looking at this solution straight away, I would rule out end user. So I don't think this is something that medical practitioners could actually create a solution to this problem. So end user is definitely probably the approach that I would cross out for that reason. Looking at what they're attempting to do, so it's across multiple hospitals. It would be a network software solution that would have a high capacity database, also searching capabilities. It probably, I would assume as well, that it's a very, very complex software solution. So because it's complex, that therefore leads me towards structured. However, it also says here in this bottom line, in Christchurch, New Zealand, a similar program has been implemented with resounding success. So that also would probably steer me away from prototyping, especially an evolutionary prototype, because it's never been created. It has been created before, and would also steer me more to the RAD. Now, there's nothing about the end users or not knowing what they want, so I'm going to rule out prototyping here. So that's gone. So I've got between structured and RAD. I've got to make a choice, but also bear in mind that I can use a combination of approaches. So if I come back to my scenario here, and this question here was a bit difficult. It's asking you to make some assumptions. Most of the time they'll probably give you some real clear factors that you can identify. Now, I would probably be leaning towards a combination of approaches. I think that, especially in this line, it's a similar program. It's not exactly the same, so it's similar. So there's a lot of modules within the RAD that we could use, but because reliability is at the forefront of this, it's a hospital program. You wouldn't want someone to be having an anaphylactic allergy or being allergic to penicillin, and for some reason there was an error and it didn't show up that, and the doctors administered penicillin. So because reliability itself is the forefront, I would probably have to say that the answer to that question would be structured by itself, or the combination between a structured and a RAD. Either one of those two answers, if justified appropriately, looking at a complex software solution with reliability as being the forefront, because it's a medical database, and giving an example like penicillin that I just discussed. And then you could also say the combination with the RAD, because there was a similar solution that was created in Christchurch with the resounding success. And as I said there before, this is a question that always seems to come up within your half-yearly exam, your trial, or your HSC exam.